So hi there guys, my name is Izelle Hoffman, I'm a lifestyle chef and welcome to yet another episode of Viavi Thursdays. Now this week I'm really privileged because I'm actually talking to Dr. André Ernst all the way from Zanin, and of course he is the brains behind the phenomenal brand Viavi. Dr. Ernst, welcome.
Thank you, Izelle. It's a privilege to talk to you.
Well, there's actually so much that we can talk about today because, people tend to think Avo is just another Avo, but we get to claim that Viavi is actually the cream of the crop. Now, before we actually get to that question, maybe give us a little bit of background, who you are, where you started, why the interest in avocados?
Yes, firstly, Izelle, I see you've introduced me as doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. As I always prefer to say, I'm a plant doctor. I studied horticulture. We have a firm belief in the company that whoever joins the company as a family member, it's a family business, should come and add value. And that was the value that I wanted to come and add to the business. And my interest was particularly in nursery and obviously in avocados. And at the time when I joined the business, actually avocados was only an exotic. And it was a nice challenge for me to get involved with avocados. And that's how everything started, actually.
Okay, why would you say it's sort of an exotic? Because, over the weeks we've been talking a lot about, avocado is one of the premium products out there. However, we've been doing taste profiling, all kinds of things like that. So if you can maybe just elaborate a little bit why you think it's an exotic, we can actually move on to the next question because I've got so many things to ask you today.
Izelle, yes, you see, avocados is a subtropical fruit, as citrus, but we tend to refer to citrus and subtropical fruit. That's how we talk because citrus is a commodity. Avocados, when I joined the company in 1980, just to give you an indication, all of what we've exported during 1980 and 1981 was air freighted. So that's the size of what the business were those days. And it was sold hard at those days. Later on, the English started going ripe and ready, but it was sold hard. And as an exotic product, it means it was not consumed basically as we see today on the plate, and it became a true commodity where it's part of your full diet.
Okay, and why would you say Viavi is cream of the crop? I've been dying to ask you this question.
I think, firstly, sometimes things just happen and it goes the way that you want it to go. So maybe to take you a little bit back is that I told you just now I started with a nursery. There was a big demand basically for clonal rootstocks because of Phytophthora root rot that took the avocado industry out worldwide and also in South Africa. And it just happened that, yes, you need to propagate certain cultivars. The standard ones those days were actually Viavi, the commercial ones Viavi, and then was just about to become very popular. And it just happened that you realize that if you want a competitive edge, you need to have something that you could offer to other breeders, to other nurserymen, to whoever, other role players. And it just happened that my nursery manager at that time, that was in the late 90s, it happened that he came across this particular cultivar, which was actually a selection at that time. And he brought it and he said, he thinks this thing's got potential. And then we saw the potential and then we took it from there. Now, why the cream of the crop? I told you, we started as an exotic and sold avocados hard and the consumer had to ripen it, but it changed. And it became like bananas. Today, you don't buy green bananas, you buy ripened bananas. And so more and more, we moved into that. And so the demand from the consumer side actually changed, or from the trade side changed, to put an offer, I could say, on offer, it should be something that the consumer could take home and consume immediately. And that's where it came in, because the traditional cultivars were actually selected for so-called shelf life that was not correctly defined. It's how long they could remain hard. It's a cream of the crop because its attributes suits 100% what the consumer wants. It is a fruit that is very tasty, it's creamy, it's got a nice seed, you eat a lot of flesh, it lasts well in the fridge, you could reuse it the whole day, as you've discovered, by cutting it open and just put it back in the fridge. It lasts well in salads and whatever. And that's why it became the cream of the crop, purely because it basically complies with all the attributes that we need to have the perfect avocado for the consumer.
It's as if the farmer is almost doing the thinking for the consumer to actually make sure that when that fruit gets consumed, that it is in that perfect condition, like you say. Now, I was exceptionally privileged last week. I managed to join you guys on the farm, and it gave me a little bit of an eye-opener, because a lot of people think, you know, there's an avo on a tree and then all of a sudden it's on the shelf. But there's a lot of thinking, effort, love, and care that goes into that whole process. And I actually got to experience it firsthand when I was there with you guys last week. Can you maybe, from your side, just take us through the whole, you know, the process from on the farm, getting it to the warehouse or where it gets packed, and then all the way to how we get to, you know, get it here in town? Because I spoke to a phenomenal guy called Patrick, of course, and we had a good conversation, but I think it would be good to also hear it from your side, Doctor.
Yes, you know, if you it's actually very interesting. If you move the commodity, from the exotic status to a commodity status, there's a couple of things that changes. So all of a sudden, you're confronted that you must basically put on offer something that complies to certain, what I refer to as quality standards. And those quality standards would include when the consumer cuts it and he could consume it, it would be tasty, it could last long as a ripened fruit, the wastage levels at home should be very low. So those things is basically the ideal cultivar. Now, just to take you one step back, you know, into science, avocados are as what we refer to it as climacteric fruit. Now, a climacteric fruit, what happens there is when you pick it, a fruit respires, it breathes as we breathe, and then it starts ripening. And as soon as it starts ripening, you can't stop the process. So you need to be able to manage that. So that is very important, that you should bear that in mind, because the ideal avocado is one that could ripen well, ripen evenly at the ripeners, and could be presented as perfectly ripe and all the goodies, and that obviously its storage life as a ripened product should be very good. So now what do you sit with? Now you sit with a product that could easily ripen. So you need to have your protocols in place, because you don't want it to ripen on the tree. That actually doesn't happen. It could start coloring there, but from there onwards, as soon as you pick it, the fruit starts ripening immediately. And if you don't control the whole environment, which is basically based on temperature, time, then you will not be able to basically supply a product or put a product in a perfect condition to you know, on consumer basis, or in the trade. Basically, it could ripen. And you could lose your control over the product. So there's a couple of protocols and things that you need to bear in mind on how you deal with this product, and that makes it so unique.
Well, like I said, you know, I was on the farm. I actually, you know, managed to be part of the whole team, and we were actively busy getting some avocados. And then Patrick even explained to me that, you know, how you guys take care of the roads to make sure those avocados get to the warehouse in perfect condition. And then from there, there's a whole process, like you're saying. From a consumer perspective, I often say to people, you know, avocado is not just an avocado, because there is all these gimmicks out there that say, you know, avo is never perfectly ripe, or when you buy a box of avos, they happen to be ripe all at the same time. And today you sort of answered, you know, just to explain and summarize to people watching today that, you know, yes, the farmer is sort of taking control of that whole process. And there's a lot of role players in this whole value chain to make sure that every time you get an avocado off the shelf, Viavi is exclusive to Woolworths, of course, that it is in that perfectly ripe condition. I mean, over the weeks, we've been talking about why Viavi, you know, from a consumer perspective, is cream of the crop. And I am a lifestyle chef, so I tend to believe that for me, Viavi, when you mix it with a little bit of unsweetened almond milk, becomes the perfect vegan or vegetarian cream, because it actually is so creamy and it does not need things like your lime juice, your lemon juice, things like that in order to, you know, keep it from discoloring, because we do eat with our eyes. So of course, presentation is always key when we put that perfect ingredients on the plate. Any final words from your side before I let you go, Dr. André? Because I assume you guys are always so busy on that side, so don't want to take up too much of your time today.
No, I think what is important is that we started off with this selection that we gave it a name. It was then given the name Maluma, which refers to the farm name of the original owner, the discoverer. And then from there, we took it further. It was an open cultivar at that time, which everybody could plant. And with Zander, with his marketing background that joined the farm or the business, he then realized that we need to bring in something that would differentiate this product, because we just realized that we've got a very good product, as you referred to, that is the cream of the crop. And that's where we went to the next step, which we refer to now as the certified Maluma. And within the certified Maluma, obviously we have the brand Viavi, which is now well known. And we support Viavi, and this drive supports the quality that we want to put on the table. And obviously to ensure this, there's a lot of steps that needs to be taken from the farming, how you farm with it, how you harvest it, how you pack it, how you move it from there, transport or deliver it to the different ripeners in South Africa and overseas, and deliver it in a perfect condition. So you need to deliver it as if it's still hanging on the tree, fresh. It needs to be fresh. And then they take it from there and ripen it and take it further to the further protocols that we have obviously were involved with, and eventually put this cream of the crop on the table. And that eventually we define as the Maluma protocols, which actually now is developed into the Viavi protocol. And for those who wants to join this open club, they need to comply with those protocols. And if they do that, then we ensure that this remains the cream of the crop and stay in heavy demand as it presently is.
Yes. Now, I actually get often asked the question, because Viavi, we've got the smaller seed, more flesh, you know, it's got less stringy fibers and it is so creamy. How GMO modified is this fruit? Because people so often comment on a lot of my posts, and I think, you know, there's no better person than you to answer that question.
No, certainly it's not genetically modified. Nature gave it to us. Nature gave it with all these perfect attributes. And Zander did a presentation at one of the World Congresses and actually highlighted it. And, you know, we involved now in breeding. We've started with where we at high level do breeding where the genome is actually sequenced. And the nice thing about Maluma has become a reference in breeding, because it perfectly fits without any genetic modification.
And that's actually so phenomenal. So it is actually engineered by nature. Dr. André Ernst, thank you so much for your time. So we have actually established that Viavi is indeed the cream of the crop. So be on the lookout for these phenomenal fruit. They are exclusive to Woolworths, and you can actually make sure that you are buying these products by having a look on the packet. They've got a round, like a circular, like a black sticker that says Viavi, exclusive to Woolworths. And if you are on the, in the shelves or at the shops and you are looking at the different fruit, you can also see them because they've got a dark purpley, sort of pebbly skin color. So it does not mean they're overripe. It means they are perfect for consumption. Dr. André Ernst, thank you so much for joining us this week. And we will then yet again have another Viavi Thursday next week, same time, same place. And remember to join the evolution. Follow Viavi Avocado on our social platforms. Of course, it is on Instagram, Facebook, and you can also direct comment on this post if there is any additional questions. Till next week, from my side, have a blessed and safe week. Dr. Adams, thank you for your time all the way from Zanin.
Thank you, Izelle.
Have a lovely week. Bye-bye.